The key was still warm in my palm when I locked the duplex door behind me. My name is Amara, and I am 29 years old. That key had been the first thing I'd ever bought that wasn't secondhand, the first thing that didn't carry someone else's history before mine. I hadn't told my parents, not because I wanted to keep secrets, but because I wanted one corner of my life untouched by their hands. But secrets have a way of leaking. It was a Sunday when I overheard my mother's voice through the thin wall of the kitchen while I sipped coffee, phone on speaker. Well, of course, his family will stay with Amara. She doesn't need that much space. It's only fair. My father hummed his agreement, the way he always did. Better than wasting rent. A duplex with 2 units? Perfect for your brother's wife and the kids. She won't mind. The coffee burned the back of my throat. I set the cup down before it slipped. They never asked. They never even thought to. My life had always been a ledger in their hands, where my choices could be scribbled over to cover debts, obligations, excuses. When I bought the place, I imagined curtains with soft light, plants on windowsills, neighbors who waved when they passed. What I didn't imagine was my brother's children smearing fingerprints across walls I hadn't even painted yet. Amara should feel grateful, my mother added, her voice slicing. At least someone useful will live there. The silence in my living room thickened. I remember tracing the grooves of that key, pressing so hard it left a mark in my skin. Grateful. Always grateful, never equal. Have you ever had family cross your boundaries? Let me know in the comments. I didn't argue. I didn't slam the phone shut. I only murmured something quiet, something forgettable, and let them carry on with their plans. But inside, the duplex changed. The walls weren't just bare, they listened. The windows weren't just open, they watched. And the key in my hand, it stopped feeling like ownership. It felt like a question. How long before they turned it against me? That week, I walked the neighborhood, passing strangers who didn't know me, imagining them instead. A mother unpacking boxes, children running up the stairs, my brother's shadow filling my hallway. The duplex wasn't big enough for 2 families, but it was big enough for a lie. I pressed the key flat against my desk that night. The mark in my palm was gone, but the decision it left behind, that stayed. And as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I understood silence was no longer surrender. It was strategy. The following Friday, I stood in the duplex empty living room, my breath echoing against the bare walls. The late afternoon light poured through the tall windows, making dust flecks shimmer like confetti I hadn't thrown. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt like a guest in my own space, a trespasser waiting for my parents' approval, though I'd never asked for it. The phone buzzed. My brother, Daniel. "Hey, sis," he said casually, the tone he used when he already knew the answer. "Mom said you've got 2 units. We're thinking of moving in next month. Kids will love the backyard." He didn't ask. He announced. "Both units are mine," I said slowly, choosing each word like glass I didn't want to shatter. A laugh sharp. "We'll just use one. You're single. What do you need 2 for? You know it makes sense." I pressed my fingers against the wall, grounding myself. The plaster felt cool, indifferent. "Daniel, I bought this place with my money. I didn't tell anyone because—" "Because you're selfish," he cut in, voice dropping. "Come on, Amara. Don't make this harder. Think about family. Think about the kids. We can't afford rent right now. You don't need the income. You've always had enough." The word enough landed like a slap. Enough was never defined, never mind to measure. I almost said yes. Years of conditioning itched in my throat. Then the door creaked as a breeze slipped in through the old frame, and I remembered. This space wasn't theirs to claim. "I'll think about it," I lied. "Good," he said, satisfied. "I'll tell Maria to start packing." The call ended, but the silence after was heavier than before. That night, I drove past the duplex again, headlights catching the for sale sign that was now lying face down in grass. I slowed, staring at the house, and realized if I didn't move fast, they would. By Monday, I was sitting across from a realtor in a narrow office, signing papers I hadn't imagined I'd sign so soon. Lease agreements, background checks, renters with steady jobs and quiet reputations. "Are you sure you want both units filled immediately?" the realtor asked, eyebrow raised. "Most new owners keep one for themselves." I smiled faintly, though my hands trembled. "Yes, both." The pen scratched across the final page, and I felt something shift. My parents and Daniel thought they'd written my story, but I'd just handed the first draft to strangers who knew nothing about me, and maybe that was the point. Outside, the evening smelled of rain. I slid the key back into my palm and whispered to myself, not selfish, strategic, and in that whisper, for the first time, the duplex finally felt like mine. By the end of that week, both leases were signed. The ink still looked wet when I slid the papers into a folder and tucked it deep in my drawer. My tenants, a young nurse named Amani and a quiet couple who worked night shifts at the airport, would be moving in within days. The first boxes arrived on a Wednesday. I watched from my car, parked half a block away, as Amani carried a plant with broad green leaves up the front steps. She cradled it like a child. The couple followed with a small bookshelf, their laughter carrying faintly through the air. The sound was ordinary, but to me it was a declaration. This place was alive and it belonged to them. Not to my brother, not to my parents. That night my mother called. Her voice was syrup sweet, stretched thin over expectation. "So, Amara, when were you planning to tell us about your little purchase?" I froze in the kitchen, the hum of the fridge suddenly loud. "I wasn't," I admitted. A pause. Then, sharp as scissors, "We've already told Daniel and Maria they can move in. The kids are excited. Do you really want to disappoint them?" My free hand traced the rim of a chipped mug on the counter. "Mom, both units are occupied. I rented them out." The silence on the other end felt like the world holding its breath. Then came the crack. "Occupied." Her voice rose. "Amara, how could you? That's family property." "No," I whispered, though my heart pounded so loudly I was sure she heard it. "It's mine." In the background, I caught my father's murmur, then Daniel's sharper tone. "Put her on speaker." And suddenly, I was facing all of them at once. Daniel's voice crashed through. "You rented to strangers? Over your own blood? What kind of sister does that make you?" The words lodged in me like stones. I wanted to defend myself, to list the years I'd swallowed my own dreams for theirs, the countless times family meant sacrifice Amara. But instead I only said, "The kind of sister who's done being used." The line went dead. I leaned against the wall, pressing the phone to my chest. My reflection in the dark window stared back at me, tired, trembling, but unbroken. The next morning, a voicemail waited. My brother's voice, low and venomous. "You think this is over? You'll regret this, Amara." I deleted it without replaying. Outside, movers carried in the last of Amani's boxes. A child's laugh drifted from somewhere in the neighborhood, and as the door of the duplex closed behind them, the key in my pocket burned with new meaning. It wasn't just a key anymore. It was proof that I had finally chosen myself. The next Sunday, I sat on the porch of my small apartment across town, a chipped notebook in my lap. I kept replaying my brother's voicemail in my head, though I deleted it. His voice lingered like smoke. The duplex was only 10 minutes away, but already the stories about me had spread across the family tree like wildfire. An aunt texted me a single line, "How could you be so cruel?" An older cousin added a comment under one of my photos online, "Greed never ends well." No one had called to ask why. They never did. By Tuesday, my mother showed up at the duplex unannounced. I knew because Imani called me in a panic. "Miss Amara, there's a woman here. She says she's your mother. She's demanding to see the unit. She keeps saying her son is supposed to live here." I rushed over, my stomach in knots. When I arrived, my mother stood at the curb, arms folded, her gold bangles catching the sunlight like weapons. She didn't greet me. She only glanced at the moving truck, still parked by the curb, and then at Imani's curtains fluttering in the open window. "You gave our home to strangers," she hissed. "Our home." I repeated, the words tasting bitter. "This was never yours. It was never Daniel's. It's mine." "You're acting like we're enemies," she snapped. "Because you treated me like one," I whispered. Her eyes softened for a flicker, or maybe I imagined it, before Daniel's car pulled up, door slamming, his footsteps quick and heavy. He wore that same grin he used whenever he thought victory was inevitable. "So this is how it is," he said loudly, glancing at the tenants peering through their windows. "You'd rather have outsiders in here than family? People who don't care about you." I wanted to scream back, but my throat tightened. Instead, I pulled the folded leases from my bag. I held them up like a shield. "They signed," I said simply. His smile faltered. "You'd put contracts over blood?" "Contracts," I said, my voice steadier now, don't lie. "They don't guilt. They don't rewrite promises. They are clear. You should try it sometime." For a moment, the street went still. Even the breeze seemed to wait. Daniel took a step closer, lowering his voice, so only I could hear. "You've just declared war." But when he turned to storm back to his car, the wind caught the leases in my hand, making the pages snap like a flag. And for the first time, I didn't feel like retreating. I felt like holding the line. The days after that standoff blurred into quiet tension. I went to work, answered emails, smiled at colleagues, but underneath, my chest carried the weight of a ticking clock. I knew Daniel. He thrived on escalation. The first sign came in whispers. My aunt phoned, lowering her voice as though betraying state secrets. "Your brother's been telling everyone you're trying to cut the family out, that you're planning to sell the house and keep the money." I thanked her, though the words barely reached my tongue. Sell? The duplex was never theirs to lose. Yet somehow the rumor spread, like it had been carved in stone. By Friday, the rumor had sprouted teeth. Maria, my sister-in-law, left a message. "I hope you're proud. Our children are asking why Aunt Amara doesn't love them enough to give them a home." Her voice cracked in just the right places, trained in a kind of guilt I knew too well. That evening, I drove by the duplex. Both units glowed softly from inside. Through Imani's window, I saw her arranging books on a shelf. The couple next door sat at a small table, heads bent together over plates of food. Normal lives, building themselves brick by brick. And then I noticed something new. A smear of mud across the steps, boot prints leading away. My heart sank. The next morning, the call came. Imani's voice shook. Someone banged on my door at midnight. Said we're trespassing. Said this isn't ours. "I'm scared, Miss Amara." I clenched the phone so hard my knuckles ached. "You're not trespassing. You have every right. Don't open the door for anyone. I'll handle this." But how? The leases were binding. Yet paper could feel so fragile against the force of family entitlement. I drove straight to the realtor's office. My hands shook as I pulled the signed copies from my bag. "I need everything official. Filed, notarized. If they try to challenge me." The realtor nodded, sliding the folder back with calm efficiency. "You did the right thing, Amara. These tenants are secure. And so are you. Anyone shows up, you call the police. Family or not." Police. The word felt heavy, foreign. We were raised to believe family disputes stayed inside the house, stitched together with silence and compromise. But compromise had turned me into a ghost in my own life. As I left the office, I paused at the glass door. My reflection stared back. Tired, yes, but sharper than before. The cracked mug at home, the bruised silences, the constant bending. They weren't my identity anymore. I touched the folder against my chest. Paper, ink, law. For the first time, I had something stronger than their voices. And maybe, just maybe, stronger than their control. The storm finally broke on a Saturday afternoon. I was watering the single fern on my balcony when my phone lit up with a text from Imani. "They're here again. Your brother. His wife. 2 cars. They're shouting at the couple next door." I didn't think. I grabbed my keys, heart hammering, and sped toward the duplex. By the time I arrived, Daniel's voice was ricocheting across the street. He stood on the curb with Maria at his side, her arms crossed tight. Their children lingered near the car, restless, confused. "You can't just hand over family property to strangers," Daniel roared, jabbing a finger at the tenant's door. The couple stood firm but nervous, clutching their own lease copy like a lifeline. "Daniel!" I shouted, stepping onto the grass. Heads turned. My mother's car was parked behind his, as though she had arrived for the spectacle. She leaned against the hood, silent, her eyes fixed on me. Daniel smirked when he saw me. "Finally, maybe now you'll undo this mess." I walked closer, pulse ringing in my ears. "There's no mess, Daniel. They live here. They pay rent. They have contracts." He scoffed. "Contracts?" His laugh sliced through the air. "You think paper matters more than blood." I felt every eye on me, tenants peering from windows, neighbors slowing as they passed. My voice wanted to crack, but instead it found steel. Yes, paper matters because it protects people from exactly this: entitlement, shouting, threats. These leases are legal, and if you try to cross that line again, you'll answer to more than me. "Are you threatening me?" His face flushed red. "No," I said, steady though my hands trembled. "I'm protecting them. And myself." Maria sneered. "Look at you, Amara, acting like a landlord queen. Do you really think strangers will stand by you when family turns their back?" Her words almost pierced me. Almost. But then I caught Imani's face in the upstairs window. She gave a small nod, quiet solidarity. The couple beside me tightened their grip on the lease. "I don't need everyone," I said softly, more to myself than to them. "I just need enough." The street was silent for a beat. Then Daniel spat on the grass, grabbed his son's hand, and stalked back to his car. "You'll regret this. We'll see how far your little papers get you." Engines started. Tires screeched. And just like that, they were gone. My knees wanted to give way, but instead I walked slowly up the steps, letting the tenants see me calm, composed. Inside I burned, but outside I held the line. When the door closed behind us, I finally exhaled, and the duplex, for the first time, felt like it was breathing with me, alive, defiant, unbroken. The silence after they left clung to me like smoke. I sat at the small table inside the downstairs unit with the couple, their lease spread between us. The husband kept tracing the signature line with his finger, as if reminding himself it was real. "You don't have to apologize," I said quietly. "None of this is your fault." The wife gave me a small, grateful smile. Still, we didn't expect drama when we moved in. We just wanted peace. Her words pierced deeper than she knew. Peace. That was all I had ever wanted to. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the sound of passing cars blurring into a low hum. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Contracts burn. Family doesn't." No name, but I knew the cadence. "Daniel." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. For once, I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my drawer and pulled out the symbolic object I had carried all along, the key. Not the new one the locksmith had cut, but the very first one, with its sharp grooves that once dug into my palm. I ran my thumb along its ridges. It had been a promise, then a question, then a weapon. Now it was something else, proof of endurance. The next morning I made a choice. I booked an appointment with a lawyer. Sitting in his quiet office, surrounded by shelves of thick books, I slid the leases across his desk. I want everything airtight. If they try to come after me, or the tenants, I want it handled. The lawyer, an older man with calm eyes, skimmed the pages and nodded. "You're smart to get ahead of this. Family disputes are the ugliest because they think law doesn't apply to them, but it does." Hearing those words felt like water after drought. I signed the retainer papers. My hand shook, but not from fear, from release. When I stepped outside, the afternoon sun painted the sidewalks gold. For the first time, I felt taller, not because I had fought back with anger, but because I had chosen protection, chosen boundaries, chosen myself. That evening, I walked the duplex steps again. Imani waved from her window, holding up her thriving plant. The couple next door smiled as they set a lamp on their porch. And I thought, this is what home means. Not obligation, not silence, not erasure. Just people building lives with respect. Still, I knew Daniel wasn't finished. The storm always circles before it breaks for good. I turned the old key over in my hand and whispered to the empty air, "I'm ready this time." The metal was cool, steady, and for once, so was I. The final confrontation came not with shouting, but with silence. 2 weeks later, I received a letter. Thick paper, heavy ink. My parents' handwriting, scrawled across the envelope. For a heartbeat, I thought it might be an apology. But when I unfolded the page, the words cut deeper than any voicemail. "You've humiliated this family. You've chosen strangers over blood. Until you undo this, you are no daughter of ours." I read it twice, 3 times. My breath steadied, then slowed. For years, those words would have shattered me. Now, they sounded like echoes in an empty hall. That afternoon, I returned to the lawyer's office and handed him the letter. He scanned it, his brow furrowing. "You've already protected yourself. This is just noise. But if you want, we can formalize it further. Power of attorney. Clear property deeds filed, undeniable." "Yes," I said, my voice calm, steady. "Do it. Everything in writing. I won't live under threats anymore." When I stepped out of the office, the city air felt lighter. Days later, my parents drove by the duplex. I knew because I was inside, helping Imani hang curtains. From the window, I saw their car slow, Daniel leaning forward in the back seat. They looked at the house, at the porch light, glowing, the flower pot by the door, the sound of laughter drifting out. And then they saw me. I didn't hide. I stood in the frame of the window, the old key dangling from my hand. My mother's eyes widened. My father's lips pressed thin. Daniel's face hardened into stone. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I simply turned, pressed the key into Imani's palm, and said, "This house belongs to you now." Her eyes shone with gratitude, confusion, respect. Because the truth was simple. The duplex had never been about walls or rent. It had been about choosing myself. And now, handing over that key was proof that I wasn't clinging anymore. I was free. Later that evening, sitting alone in my own apartment, I unfolded their letter again. This time I didn't cry. Instead, I picked up a pen and wrote my response on the back. "I am your daughter, but I am also my own person. And this is the first time I've ever lived like it." I folded it once, then slid it into a drawer. They might never read it, but I had written it for me. The key was gone. The duplex was full. My silence had turned into strength. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace.